Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss everything related to building winning teams. And we are so glad that you could join us. I'm your host. My name is Tony Kuria, and we are so glad that you could be with us. The Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a human resource and risk advisory consultancy. And our main task here in this podcast is to help you, the viewer, the listener, whoever, whatever you do, whether in business, whether you're in your career, to be able to know the challenges, and the solutions that you can use to build a strong team in the workplace. Today, I'm with my usual crew. First and foremost is the Aurum Consultants Managing Director, CHRP Zippy Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, viewers. I'm happy to be here this morning and looking forward to an interactive session.
Thank you, Zippy. And our usual HR specialist. As he keeps saying, a consultant needs a sounding board to know that they're in the right track. CHRP Martha, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Anthony, and welcome viewers to our podcast. We believe it is going to be interactive. Even as you tune in, please give your comments or just chip in. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, mimi tu ndio nimebakia kuweka CHRS yangu nitaweka nini? Head of State Commendation or something. I should put a HSC, Head of State Commendation. Anyway, we thank God our titles are still good enough. We are so glad that you could join us today. We are so glad that you as our viewers could join us today. It was last week. Today is on the 12th. Yes, last week on the 5th, we began a fresh topic, a topic that, especially from the HR perspective, it's very powerful. And even basically from a management perspective, it's a very pertinent issue that all companies, all industries, not just government, even parastatals and governments, schools, everyone talks about issues regarding productivity and performance. As long as it is called a workplace, productivity and performance is a very pertinent issue. And it's something that I don't think it will ever go out of fashion. Why? Because as long as you're existing to serve people for either for profit or for non-profit, either you're a government, whatever, the people that you hire to do the job have to deliver. And they can only deliver on a measurable basis that is called performance, that may be called performance metrics or productivity targets. And we discussed a number of issues last week. We had a very powerful guest, a CEO of a group of companies. But today, we want to go a bit more deeper with these experts, Zippy and Martha. And we are going to look at the challenges in monitoring productivity and performance. As you know, many managers struggle to develop accurate performance metrics, while HR professionals often lack the necessary data and tools to effectively collect and analyze productivity and performance information. So that is the challenge. And today, Martha and Zippy, we shall help people out there decipher how do you do this. So first, I'll ask Zippy, as we look at this issue regarding challenges of monitoring. Number one, what are the major barriers to productivity? Just on a basic level, what are the major barriers to productivity?
Thank you, Anthony. Maybe to pick up from what you've just said, when I think about productivity, what is not measured can never be achieved. And you will realize that data is becoming so critical, is becoming like gold. And if you don't have data, if you're not gathering data in your organization, then actually tracking becomes quite a challenge. A lot of times, when you start a business or when you go to work, you are wanting to be productive, but we rarely think about how we're going to measure this productivity. How am I going to say at the end of the day, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, I was actually productive and I've achieved my goals? One of the things I've learned in life is to actually just look back at the end of every day and see how productive I was today. And there are days I will look and I will be like, I honestly don't think I was productive. And one of the things I'm learning and becoming very self aware about is there's so many daily routine things can hinder me from my objectives and my goals. I think last week I talked about this a bit, what we call the whirlwind, the daily activities. And mother will tell you, like in a nature department, every day there are so many small, minute, different things that will come that require your attention, yet you still need to actually work towards achieving your goals. But again, talking about productivity, if you look at research, you will realize only 53% of workers actually put minimum effort. And that is quite alarming because it means we are not putting in a lot of effort or going an extra mile. We are doing barely the bare minimum, what we need to do to get our salaries. But if we work like that, the question becomes, are we going to be able to achieve our productivity or our objectives? And I would probably think no. So, looking at the barriers of productivity, I'm thinking about the work environment. As an employer, I need to ask myself, what kind of a work environment am I creating for the employees to be able to thrive, for them to be able to perform, for them to be able to actually give their best? When I look at their safety, is this something taken care of? Or are they coming to work and they are worried and they are wondering whether I will be able to be safe, as I work? Depending on the different sectors we're in, you might be required to put in quite a number of measures. Maybe you need to give your employees PPEs. Maybe you need to give them the different tools they need to be able to be productive. And that is actually another barrier, when we don't give our employees the necessary tools to be able to perform their duties. So whatever it is an employee needs to do, number one, create a safe environment where they feel they're safe, and number two, also give them the necessary tools that they need to be able to work. The other barrier I find is communication. And I think last week we talked a bit about this, where you find there's no effective communication, there's no clear direction. And perhaps communication is coming from different quarters that ends up confusing the team. So, how is our communication? And I think last month we were actually talking about communication at the workplace. And it's a big, big barrier to productivity. So, how are we going to handle this big elephant called communication and make sure communication is done well, is effective, and it actually fulfills the intended purpose? So, we need to look at that and make sure it's not what is prohibiting our own productivity and productivity for the organization. Looking at the employees themselves, their skills is also something else that can be a great hindrance to their productivity. Sometimes employees are given a responsibility, and because when we were recruiting them, the way they presented themselves, they presented themselves to, to have more knowledge than even probably the people in the organization. So we are all excited about this person who is coming to the organization. They are given the responsibility, but hey, they hit the ground and they realize we took a ground in different, like we always say. And it's important for us to actually make sure our employees have the necessary skills. Let's not make the assumptions that they know. Train your employees. Train them over and over and over. Even if it means training them about the same thing, keep on training them, because the more they keep on hearing them, the more they keep on practicing, the better it gets and becomes more perfect. And you can never say I've learned enough. Every day there's always something new to learn. So I would think there are many barriers to productivity, and some of them I think they are also self-made. We need to actually be very deliberate into looking at what are we looking at when we say we want to be productive, we want to be efficient. What does that really mean for my organization? What does that really mean for the role that I'm holding as an employee? I'm saying I want to be productive this month, I want to be productive this year, I want to achieve more this year. What does that really mean for you? And I think once we define that, then we start actually taking steps towards the right direction. I think I will allow Mother to contribute to this because I think there are many, many barriers that could hinder our productivity.
Thank you, Zippy. Martha, from your perspective, What are the barriers, major barriers to productivity?
Yeah, I appreciate what Zippy is sharing. They're making my mind kind of wake up, and in this issue of productivity, even to other things that I may not have thought about. And I remember for most podcasts we have said, we have said that the culture of an organization really dictates a lot as far as any of these issues are concerned, more so the issue of performance and productivity. Um, so when you have a culture that embraces high performing culture, then that is embedded in your DNA as an organization. Uh, and it is important that you have the right culture, that that you must from the word go decide that you will embrace this culture of a high performing organization, so that even as people come in, they know that they are coming into this culture. Have you ever seen, Tony, that you can tell about an organization by just visiting and just interacting with the receptionist?
Mm,
Just the way you are handled, you get to know what kind of culture this organization is. And we also learned that culture actually eats strategy for breakfast. So your culture is so important because you don't want it to eat your strategy. And then, of course, you must have a strategy. Now, if you have a strategy and it is in written form and then it is not communicated to the people who are
mm,
supposed to implement this strategy, that's there right away is a barrier for productivity because people are not aware of what they are needing to do. So,
mm,
as a CEO, and also for the SMEs, you have the vision and it's in your head, but it is important to be able to communicate it to people so that they can buy your idea and run the organization for you. So if it remains in your head, um, productivity becomes an issue because people are coming to the office but they are not really knowing what to do. So they just come and
mm,
do some meager things. They are tired in the evening, then they go back home, but really they can't trace what they have done. So you'll find barriers for productivity is both organizational and it's also personal. So
mm,
the ones I have mentioned here are organizational. The things that you do or you don't do that make people not productive. And Zippy talked about that communication bit. It is so important and it should be in your policy exactly how you communicate things in your organizations so that you are able the communication is effective and people get to understand what they are about.
mm.
The other barrier for productivity, and this goes to organizations that do not recognize things like performance management.
Yes.
There are other organizations that recognize performance management, but they don't realize that performance management uh, equals reward and recognition. You need
Mm,
to create a healthy competition. I need to know that, so you are doing performance management. I have these targets and all and all and all. What is in it for me as an employee? Should I perform better? And that helps set people for planning themselves to succeed because they know at the end of the day there is a cake. So it's good to have some reward and recognitions kind of plan when you have a performance management, because that entices people to even work better and be productive. And the other thing is lacking employee engagement. Uh,
mm,
you can find an organization where the bosses, they are uko juu, the alpha and the omega, and the staff are down here. So you don't even have a model of down top communication. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what happens in the implementers are really the ones down. Your managers, your executive team on top, they are not the
Mm.
implementers. The people down here are the implementers. And that information that they can give you can change a lot of productivity issues. So it's good to have such models where there is top-down communication, of course, but they need to be a down-top communication because it is a feedback mechanism of where we are, how are we doing here? This strategy we put, is it working? These are, if it's a sales organization, customer service, they are the ones who are meeting the customers. The customers' needs change with various
Mm.
aspects. Yeah, anything that can change the customer's needs and diversity. So those are the people who give you feedback. So if you don't have an ear for those people, you will never know and what is happening in the ground. You will never know what needs to change. You will never know what needs to add. So then productivity just remains minimum. And
Mm.
also when the other thing, and Zippy touched on this, is about training. It's so important that you kind of entrench a form of culture of learning in your organization, that people are continuously learning the things that when my first training was in secretarial. There was shorthand, sijui what, typing speed. I left with 150 words per minute,
No.
Is that applicable today? Even if I was a PA, it is not applicable. So if there's no training, there's no continuous learning, and we know technology changes every day, there will be minimum productivity in that organization. Like, I don't know, one of these, is it a UN organization? And I'm thinking, a cousin of mine applied for an admin assistant job, and she was, one of the interviews was typing. And I thought, what? That's old school, especially for such an organization. So a culture of learning and changing with technology helps you meet that gap of productivity. Now, from a personal perspective, I'll be quick because Zippy mentioned some few things. Is So if you have a vibrant organization that has met all those things, now I'm the employee. One of the key things I need to do is understand my part in the cause of the organization. Do I understand what I need to do? Do I understand what is expected of me? And then when I do that, uh, I be actively self-aware of my productivity. Like Zippy has said, there are days you can actually tell, hey, today, then I'm going home lakini I've not really met what I need to do. And then it's okay to make sure that your goals are smart. You work with your manager to ensure that your goals are smart. This is exactly what is expected of me. Because once you work like that with targets, then you'll find every day you can tick what you're doing against the set goals of the organization. So and then feedback to your manager where you are not stuck. We all know that we don't have knowledge every time. You can reach out, have an ongoing communication with your manager. When you have that, and the organization's culture allows that, you'll find that is some of the things of a very high productive organizations. Thank you very much.
Mother, just before Anthony comes back, when you're talking, I'm just remembering about one particular thing, and I've been asked this question by clients, and sometimes you actually don't have the solutions, and it touches on employee self-discipline, and especially when it comes to personal phones. I have realized this is one of the biggest distractions when it comes to the workplace productivity. Unfortunately, technology is here with us. It's fortunate and it's unfortunate at the same time, because if we don't use technology for the right reasons, then we spend so much time on our own personal phone, social media, instead of actually focusing on what we're supposed to be doing. No wonder you will find research actually talking about 53% gives barely, the bare minimum they can give, meaning they are probably not even reaching whatever is required as a target. So what is happening to the other 47%? You know, um, so phones, I'm realizing, is something else that is quite a serious distraction, and it comes down to self-discipline. And how do we manage this? And I'm pointing this out because I know some of our clients are watching and listening, and they wonder, how do we deal with phones when it comes to employees? We can't take away their phones, yet these phones become a barrier to productivity. So again, how are we going to inculcate that self-discipline that when I come to work as an employee, I know my work is not to be on my personal phone checking my WhatsApp messages and checking my Facebook half of the time, instead of actually concentrating on the activities for the day. And that's why sometimes you'll actually probably find, at the end of the day, you're realizing, hey, today there's quite a number of things that I didn't do. And when you go back to actually track what you did from morning, you'll realize some of it was actually because of self-discipline. That part of self-discipline was not there, and you are distracted by other things. I've seen situations, and I remember this particular client where employees were actually banned from walking from one desk to another, because people are loitering in the office. You're walking to your friend's desk, you start chit chatting, you waste a whole 30 minutes, and it has nothing to do with the work that you're doing. It's actually about probably office gossip and many, many other things. So I think there's a lot of distractions, and we need to be very self aware and be able to take stock every day as employees and say, this is what I was able to do. I was not able to do this. What distracted me, or what made me not be able to achieve what I wanted to do today? Back to you, Anthony.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
okay,
Wow.
Zippy. Let me come
Yes.
in, Zippy, and it's so good you have pointed out that, and that has to do with personal work ethic, um, because we have said personal awareness of your performance, and if you're in that organization that really has a good culture, then you find that it is up to you to have personal ethic and determine about your productivity. And then you check what are your barriers as a person for productivity. And then you find one of them is the phone. The other one is, I worked with an organization that had a branch in US. And someone told us, in US office, when they enter in the office, the high is high 8 o'clock. Someone is they are not chatting. Now our culture, however, does not allow that. It allows when I pass through Zippy's desk, we hug, we talk about last night, how are your children, how is your husband, and then I go to the next person. By the time I'm sitting at my desk, it's maybe 9 or 9:30. A whole hour is spent. And that's why personal awareness is critical in performance. Once you said about phone, I remembered something else that is causing people currently, especially since COVID. It is meetings, Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, sijui what meetings. You find if you can look at your calendar, you have been put in all these meetings, like from morning to evening, and some are even clashing. So initially, when COVID came, like me, I found myself just attending every meeting I have been invited to. And one day I was just in a meeting and I wondered, what value am I adding here? Yeah, except the learning in the meeting. And so you kind of have to deliberately make a decision to choose the meetings that you are going to add value, the meetings you must attend or you have to attend, and the meetings that even if you don't attend, nothing, you can attend a meeting and no one is even noticing you are in, because you have no contribution to that meeting. So why are you attending that meeting? And most of those meetings, by the way, they would go to 30 to 45 minutes to 1 hour, and you could be doing something very important. So it's a balance, um, and so it's good to ask yourself when you have personal work ethic. It's good to ask yourself, even this meeting, how am I adding value? You only attend if you know you're adding value. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Sorry. Thank you, ladies. Today, indeed, we are hearing very interesting perspectives. And if you are listening like me and taking notes, I'm sure you have taken a lot of notes. Whether you are an entrepreneur, you are a CEO, whether you are an employee, you are a general manager, whether you are just somebody on the floor of the at the at the entry level, there are major things that we have learned about barriers to productivity. And would love to hear your comments. If you have any comments, you've heard things that you've not heard before, or there has been an aha moment when you've heard something said by either Zippy or Martha that that really you've seen this happen. You've seen it happen in the office. You're wondering, okay, does this only happen here? And today you've heard it happens everywhere. Kindly send us your comments. Send us your insights. Probably there are areas that you've sorted issues that we have just discussed here. There's something Martha and Zippy that you've just said that, from what I'm hearing, barriers to productivity are both on the managerial aspect and on the employee aspect. From the CEO's office right up to the person working at the floor, at the shop floor, if you could call it that way. Martha, you've discussed very clearly issues regarding communication. That if there is no top down, I noticed you did not say bottom up. You said you used another language, which is also acceptable. Uh, you called it feedback. But yeah, from the management, if they're not communicating the vision, the mission, the purpose, and what things to do with targets and all that, then it becomes a barrier to productivity. Similarly, if there is no feedback mechanism to enable management, middle and top management achieve their goals, then it becomes a challenge. Then I've heard also, Zippy, you've brought about issues regarding how do we improve productivity amongst our staff. Issues like wasting too much time on phone, or having no clarity about their jobs and their reporting lines, and therefore you do not know what you're supposed to achieve. You will come to work and your targets are not smart, then that also becomes a barrier to productivity. So those are powerful points that are very practical, and I believe anyone who is in the workplace today can identify with one or several of these. But now the question is, the second question would be that I have in mind: how do we overcome these productivity challenges? How do we tackle them? Now we have identified. Yes, we have identified some people come and waste time on their phones. We have identified that there is a struggle with the feedback mechanism. Employees are seeing things and their bosses are not near to hear. Or from a managerial perspective, you've realized you have not been communicating the business goals effectively to your line managers and to your staff. So, how do we overcome these challenges? Let me start that with Zippy, from your perspective. How do we overcome productivity challenges?
Anthony, I remember our guest last week talking about how they actually overcome this particular barrier. And he talked about the way they have a way of reporting that has traffic lights. And
Mm,
these traffic lights, actually, when you come to weekly reporting, you are able to actually see this person is still at red, meaning they never move from the last discussion you had.
I heard
Or
that. Yes, I
maybe they are
remember
at
that.
amber, meaning they are just ready to start. They've not even really moved. And it was an interesting way of looking at it, where there's accountability and people can be able to say what they're doing or they're not doing. It's actually something we also practice in terms of just having clear work plans and looking at those work plans on a daily, on a weekly basis. But coming down to your question, depends on whether we are talking about the employee, whether it's the manager, whether it's the HR, because all of us have to really overcome this challenge of productivity. And let me start with the employee. When it comes to the employee, one of the things that you must learn to do is to daily write a list of what you're planning to achieve, and not even write it in the morning. If you're able, when you're reviewing end of day what you're able to achieve, then write what you plan to do the following day, and only make adjustments if something urgent has come up and needs to be put on the plan. Because if you don't plan, you're planning to fail. And this is a concept that is proven over and over. And we don't have to experience it for us to say, actually, someone told me. It's important for you to actually just do, because there are people who have gone through this. They know this is what works. This doesn't work. If I wake up and go to work every day and I don't have a plan, the truth is I will achieve nothing. I will touch this, do halfway, touch this, do halfway, do the other one halfway. At the end of the day, I will have accomplished nothing. So number one, write a to-do list. Number two, even as you're writing the to-do list, segment what you need to do at what hour. It's like having an appointment. When you have an appointment with mother at this hour, it's very clear our meeting is for 30 minutes or for 1 hour, and this is what we're going to be discussing. I have another meeting with Anthony at 2 to 3, and this is what we're going to be doing. So you need to segment your day in a way that you know within this hour, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that when you don't do, actually you can go back and check, why did I not actually do what I planned to do? So again, just knowing how to diarize and plan your day is so critical for you to be able to overcome this barrier. The other thing is you need to learn to wake up earlier than usual. Some of us want to wake up and barely make it to the office at 8 a.m. The truth is, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You might think you are actually doing what you're expected to do by the employer. But remember what I said. If you're just going to do the bare minimum, you are actually working against your own growth. You can only be as good as what you're trying to achieve now. If you cannot take that extra mile, then the truth is, even tomorrow when you're given a bigger responsibility, you will not be able to do that. Even when you become a CEO, you will not be able to come to the office at 7:30 when you're required by a client to be there at 7:30. Why? Because you have cultured yourself in a way that, me, I can only get to the office at 8 or 8:05, a few minutes late, that I will not be penalized. I'm telling you, we need to learn to be at work earlier than usual. And someone listening to me might say, oh, maybe because you're a boss, this is why you're saying this. I have learned it from being an employee, have been an employee for many, many years. And I've learned it even from being a manager, that you have to learn to wake up early. You have to plan your day properly. Otherwise, you don't end up achieving anything. And sometimes we need to ask ourselves this question: why are some people seemingly doing better than others, yet they're probably doing the same thing? What is the difference? What has happened to this person who is seemingly doing better than you? Is it that they have been given better opportunities than you? Perhaps not. Even at the workplace, you will find two employees doing exactly the same thing, being given the same tools, have been exposed to the same trainings, yet one seems to be doing very well compared to the other one. And when you start actually critically looking at it, you will start seeing these small, small things we are talking about. So it's not even the major things that matter, it's the small, small things like time management. And time management might look like it's small, but it's big. Time is one of the biggest resources. If you lose, you can never recover. You've lost it forever. That's it. It's like taking 1 million and going putting it in a toilet and flushing it, and it goes to the sewer. That's the end of it. Is that bad? I've talked
Yes.
about the phone. When you get to work, unless you're using that phone for work, capture yourself in a way that if you have children at home, you know the breaks when you can go and make a phone call home and check how the kids are doing. Of course, you will have breaks here and there. Maybe you'll have a potty break, you have your lunch break, you have your tea break. During those breaks, you can quickly check on your phone and see whether there's anything that needs your urgent attention. Learn to put your phone on silence. I've seen situations where you are even in a meeting as an employee, the phone rings, and actually someone picks the phone in the middle of the meeting, and you're like, how? you know? Or you come into a meeting and you're told put your phone on silence, and people don't put their phones on silence. So a phone rings in the middle of a very important meeting and everyone is distracted. So again, we need to learn to actually put this thing called the phone away and let it not be a distraction in what we are doing. I've seen scenarios because we consult in the school industry where you find actually someone like a teacher picks the phone in the middle of a class. I mean, it's completely not right. And it's affecting our productivity. It's affecting me as an employee. And if it's affecting my productivity, it means it's affecting the output, what I'm giving the customer at the end of the day. I will make many mistakes when there's distractions. The other thing as an employee, you need to be a team player. Now, you can't be a lone ranger. You don't know everything and you can never know everything. I always say, I don't know everything and I need to learn from other people. I need to learn from my colleagues. I need to learn from everyone I'm working with. And I need to be a team player. I need to ask when I don't know. I need to contribute to whatever is happening. And this way we can be able to overcome challenges. Maybe what I'm doing is contributing to someone else's productivity. So how am I going to be a team player to make sure I'm helping my colleagues also achieve their own productivity? By being that team player, by being that link that I need to be. The other thing is you need to be accountable. And this is so key, is so critical. And if you're an employee listening to me today, if you are employed somewhere listening to me today, you need to learn the art of accountability. And of course, if you don't track, you can never be accountable because you have to be accountable for something. So you need to learn to be accountable. You need to learn to give feedback. You need to learn to give reports. Over many years, as I've worked, I've had employers say, I don't know what HR does, you know. Or, it's like, those many years where HR, it used to be, you used to be paper pushers, your work was to just do documentation and push papers and all this. And no one actually gets to understand what does HR do. You'll probably go and find a whole department of HR that has maybe 10 people. And everyone is wondering, these guys, the only thing is they spent money. They are not bringing anything to the table that would have a difference. And I realized, I kept on asking myself this question: where do employers or clients always ask this question? What does HR really do? And again, if you're an HR and you're listening to me, please hear me. You need to learn to be accountable, to give feedback, to give reports. Because if you don't do that, you will never be understood what you do every day. And people will always be thinking you do nothing. Yet there's so much you do every day. You might not even get a break. I mean, sometimes, like yesterday, I was working the whole day. And I remember Anton left me in my desk. And when he came in the evening, and I know it's bad habits not to, take breaks. And I told him, since I sat on my chair at 7:30, at 5 p.m., I was still seated because there was so much that needed my attention. And I had not moved from my chair. And it might not be the best approach in terms of getting work done because you need to take those breaths. But at the end of the day, am I accountable to what I've done? Am I going to be able to do a report that would actually show this is what I did from 7:30 to 5? I was working. There was so much. But because I'm not giving my reports, no one knows. So no one cares. So I get beaten left, right, and center. And that's the reality of life. So learning how to be accountable. Now, I will allow Mother to touch a bit of on managers and probably on HRs. Then I can contribute to aspect as well. But I'm very passionate because I have been an employee. I've been at a place where I'm a manager, and I have seen where the gaps are. And like I've said, you don't have to fall into the same trap someone else has fallen into. You can learn in a better way, and you can be better. Your growth can be faster than mine was.
Yes,
Back to you,
Martha.
Oh gosh. Thanks, ZP. I have laughed because um, there's a time in organizations where when someone doesn't know what to do, it is thrown to HR.
Mm.
Every garbage because they didn't seem to be busy. And what I can say about HR being busy and showing actually what they do, I really appreciated when we were doing the CHRP certification class. There was one paper called HR accounting. And for me, that paper was a deal breaker as far as being accountable in HR department is concerned. So it talks about reports, it talks about data analytics, so how you are able every time to give reports for decision making. And then it I felt like this enriches the role of HR. And so even when you are in meetings where decisions are being made, because you are showing facts and figures, so it's so important to be accountable, and not to have words. You have facts that displayable and people can read. You don't have to talk much. So not only in HR but in any department, you be accountable to what you're doing, and you be accountable in written format, mostly data can never go wrong. um, the other thing, and Zippy talked a lot on many things, so I'm not going to talk a lot, but I realize that as if you are committed as a person to an organization, then you are able to make decisions for yourself on how you are going to be productive. So, as Zippy said, you need to have a to-do list. I am a victim of this because Zippy, I can tell you, I can even wake up at 4 and do a to-do list. And I'm so sure when I get to the office, this is what I will do. And I get to the office, it's 5 o'clock, and I have not touched even one bit of what I wrote. So there are some departments like HR which are dynamic because some things come up. But there are some departments that even having work plans is so easy. You're just sticking against work plan. The most important thing is have a work plan. And the other most important thing, have performance targets. Because even if you have all these other things, that I'll use the word mother that come and take over your day, you need somewhere you can check your deliverables. Remember, we said productivity is getting the right things done. And we realize those things are not many. So those few things that you must get done, they need to be written somewhere. So that when the day becomes mixed up with meetings, Zippy, have you ever entered office and suddenly you have been entered into a meeting that you didn't know that was there? So you are
Yep.
even looking for the agenda. So,
Yep.
but you need to have something that then you check in the evening. This was what I was supposed to accomplish. This goes to my performance targets. These are the ones that my performance will be measured with. So you see, you have a measure for yourself. And because of that, you will get extra time to work on those things that are your performance appraisal. Then you kind of have to love your job. Tony, if you don't love your job, what are you doing? Have you ever known you can work in very stressful environment, even
Yes.
toxic, but because you
Mm.
love what you do, nothing is taking away your joy.
Yes.
Love your job. If you are there for money, I promise you, my dear, just look at what God created you to do and go do that. Because you need to be accountable to yourself and you also need to be accountable to God. But if it is just you need money for bills, and because I need money for bills, I am good at it, but the job I got is this one. So that's what I'm doing. So you have to love your job for you to be productive, because it will easily flow. Like, you don't have to put any effort to do what you love. We cannot overemphasize the use of phones, and that is personal discipline and work ethic. You have to define your work ethic. You don't need the organization to put a policy on phones. So the organization will put a policy then when they realize that my employees are they are indisciplined. And then you have to be accountable to your own personal development. It doesn't have to be the organization always paying for you for this training, for that training, for that training. No, you know your skill gap with what you do, or you know that I want a promotion. So for me to be promoted, this is what I need to do. You know, you can pay for yourself. Most You'll find most organizations actually give study leave, meaning they may not pay for your tuition, but when you're going to do exams, they will give you leave. Take advantage of that. And there are organizations that pay for tuition. Please, if you have an organization that pays for tuition assistant, please maximize that 1,000%, because that is the best thing that you can ever get from an organization. Keep yourself updated so that even when you are in meetings and discussions are happening, you have something to say, because you are making yourself broad. Some people make themselves broad by listening to the news, reading the newspaper, magazine. Make sure to create a culture of learning for yourself before the organization comes in and starts now supplementing what you are doing. Some people hold it against the organization that because you didn't train me, I didn't have this skill. You need to know which skills you don't have and you go for training. Right now, there's a lot of free internet training that you can upgrade your skills. So those things help your performance as an individual. I'm not going to touch for the organization because I had alluded to some when we were talking about the organization culture, the strategy, training people on the strategy, giving people nice seats, especially
Mm.
those who are 8 to 5. You need a nice seat, I promise. Yeah. and
Wow.
and then a good work environment where people are happy to work. Toxic work environment actually uh, kind of sucks someone's desire and sucks someone's energy, so they are not able to work. If you are a boss who keeps on breathing into your people's ears, you keep on telling them bad things. Um, if if they make one mistake, you forget the 20 things, good things they did. You take this one and overrate it and use it and use it and use it. You will not have productive stuff. So you need to always drive, like our speaker that time said, when there are small wins, celebrate them. you know Celebrate the small wins, because once you celebrate our staff, they will want to do even much more. But if you just pick there are some managers who concentrate only on the negative. So concentrate on the good, and let the negative be a learning. For that stuff. If I do something and I mess, believe you me, I have already learned. You don't need to come and shout at me. I've already learned from that mistake. And then also give some autonomy. Let people make mistakes so that they become better. So those are the few things that I can contribute. Thank you very much.
Whoa,
And
whoa,
Anthony,
whoa,
allow me
whoa.
to say something
Today,
before. I know you're about
yes,
to bring
Sippy.
this to a close, but allow me
Yes.
to say something, and especially where HR managers are concerned, on this area of overcoming productivity challenges, because I believe we play a very critical role in supporting our managers, in supporting the teams on the ground. And one of the things, and I found this to be very effective, is as an HR manager, I need to understand that my managers might not be trained on how to manage people. They might have all the skills that are required, they might have all the technical ability, but they might lack on people skills, and it's our responsibility to make sure they are equipped. We need to train them on HR. For non-HR managers, remember, they are the first line HR managers. They might not be HRs by profession, but they are the first line managers who will deal with any HR issues that come to them. And we need to equip them how they need to manage performance when it comes to employees. I've seen in situations when we are doing performance reviews, or maybe, a department, there's a light shown on them because productivity is low, and the manager starts complaining about some employees who are not performing. Yet, there's nothing to show actually there's been a way of tracking, or there's been a way of documenting that this employee is not performing, and these are the actions that are being taken. So it's important for us to actually train managers on HR for non-HR managers so that they can understand. It's important for us when we are also recruiting to have very clear strategies how we are recruiting, and also hire right. And this is why you find we put people on probation. I've seen situations where employers, or employees don't want to be put on probation, or they want to be put on a 1 month or 3 month probation, and sometimes it doesn't work. We need to have a very clear strategy when we are recruiting, when we're engaging people. How are we going to make sure we have the right people on board, and they are also placed on the right roles? I've seen a situation where you recruit someone for this role, and along the way, you actually realize their strengths are in another area. So we also need to understand what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of the people we have, and how can we place them for success within the organization. It's not always the best option to get people out. We need to look and see, can they be able to be productive in another area, and put them in an area where they are more productive. And of course, HR comes in handy because they have the expertise and they are able to support in this area. The other thing, of course, and Martha has alluded to this, is we need to reward performance. When people have performed, we have put so much pressure on them, they have done well, then are we going to reward this performance? And reward doesn't always mean it's monetary, but we need to come up with ways of how are we rewarding, how are we recognizing, how are we also dealing with non-performers, because it can be just one side. So they're the ones who are doing very well, they're the ones who are not doing very well. Are we going to deal with these two levels of performance? So very important again for HR to come in handy in some of these areas and support the managers, so that the managers can be able to support their teams well.
Okay, okay. Indeed, our time has really gone. We just discussed two items, and I can see our time has really gone. But I appreciate this was a very interesting discussion. I can see comments coming in. Comments came in. Jackie Mora was like, this was an awesome discussion, and the topic was very insightful. Injili Kweli also thought it was an insightful discussion, and he or she, I don't know there whether it's a he or a she. He said, "How can I avoid brain distractions and random social media checks on WhatsApp and Facebook?" Injili Kweli, next week, come in. We will answer that question. As you heard, Martha and both Zippy hinted to how to have these things sorted out. But next week we will discuss from a HR perspective how these challenges are overcome. In the meantime, we appreciate you for joining us. We appreciate you for joining us today. You can always get in touch with us via social media links, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also get in touch with us via our website, www.aurumconsultants.co.ke. Now, if you're out there and you've heard whatever you've heard, you're thinking, wow, what Martha said, what Zippy said, the host, Tony, said something there that really, I'm having that issue in my workplace. Where are the solutions? You can get in touch with us, and we can be able to help you. If your challenge is you're having a problem with your staff, like Zippy said, managers are coming to you as the CEO and telling you, uh, get me new staff. These ones we hired are not meeting their needs. As Zippy said, you do not need to send people home. Sometimes trainings and support in management performance is all that you need. So if that is your challenge, you will notice there are gaps within your workforce. There are things that, with a bit of training, and as Zippy said at the beginning, continuous training. These are things that here at Aurum Consultants, we can help you sort out performance and productivity challenges that can be sorted out via training. Kindly get in touch with us. We would love and would be glad to partner with you in streamlining and improving both productivity and performance. Having said that, we've come to the end of our podcast today. We are really glad that you have taken time to join with us. As I said, next week you're still going to deconstruct this issue of performance and productivity challenges and see how can it be done even better. Sometimes just a little few tweaks here and there gets a big boost in productivity. So make sure you join us next Saturday, same time, same place. We would be glad to continue doing this. And if, as I said, if you have questions, get in touch with us via the links that we put at the bottom of the screen, and we will be glad to be able to work with you. Having said that, today we come to the end of our podcast. We are thankful you took time for joining us, and therefore we wish you a nice weekend. Take care, be refreshed, go to work on Monday when you're fresh and ready to boost your productivity to the highest level. Having said that, God bless you. Nice weekend.